Lulavy, and I've had the pleasure of co-managing Break Free from Plastics Pollution Act of 2021 Summer Workshop Group. Before we begin, I want to thank my co-manager, Tessa Owens, as well as the entire team for all their hard work and effort in researching this project. I also want to thank our faculty advisor, Dr. Cook, for all his insights. Before we begin talking about the bill itself, let's first address the plastic problem. Since 1950, over 8.3 billion tons of plastic have been produced. This is because plastics are cheap, easily moldable, sanitary, as well as durable. However, their durable nature means that they can take up to 1,000 years to decompose. As of right now, the US currently lacks a proper grasp on how to deal with plastics' end-of-life cycle. This is because, as seen with only 9% being recycled, which is why this bill is being proposed. The plastic life cycle can be broken up into 7 broad stages, beginning with the extraction of either oil or liquid natural gas, which is then refined and turned into raw plastic nurdles. These nurdles are then molded down into various different products, which are then distributed, consumed. It can then be recycled, some can be reused, but the vast majority of which ends up in the landfill as waste. Today we'll discuss the 3 core components the bill addresses. We will begin by discussing the environmental component. Going back to the beginning of the plastic life cycle, we can see that plastic is either made from oil or liquid natural gas. The vast majority of plastics in the United States is made from liquid natural gas. This is because of the wide availability of natural gas in our large shale rock formations. Natural gas is extracted via hydraulic fracturing, otherwise known as fracking, which is the process of injecting high-pressure liquids and chemicals into rock formations underground, forcing these rocks to excrete oil or gas. Natural gas is also much cheaper to produce because it has less stages necessary in the refinement process. That being said, plastics are one of the main justifications for continuing to extract fossil fuels going into the future. So by addressing the plastics problem, regulators are thus addressing the fossil fuel problem as well. There are 2 main controversies surrounding fracking, the first of which has to do with their emissions. Natural gas is a much cleaner burning fossil fuel than others, with about a 50% reduction of CO2 emissions as compared to coal. However, when not burned properly, natural gas releases methane into the atmosphere. Methane is about 80 times more potent in in its first 20 years in the atmosphere. And that being said, it is really important for us to grab a hold of methane in order to see a reduced warming effect in the coming decades. Methane leakages occur when fracking sites are often abandoned, as well as throughout the extensive pipeline network in the United States, which is often poorly maintained. The second main controversy is around groundwater contamination. Many fracking companies will say groundwater contamination is impossible, as fracking pipes are located well below the groundwater table. While this is true, these pipes are often leak over time. The vast majority of fracking sites are located on indigenous community lands or in low-income rural communities who have little alternatives for water sources. So when the groundwater is contaminated, they are forced to turn to plastic water bottle alternatives. In 1963, at the National Plastic Conference, leaders of the conference claimed that the future of plastics lie within the trash can. This meant that plastic producers should stop producing reusable packaging and start producing single-use plastics, which are meant to be used once and thrown into the landfill. This is because they are cheaper and much more profitable for both the fossil fuel companies and the producers. This has led to mass single-use production as well as mass single-use litter. The bill directly addresses this by banning single-use plastic products such as bags, utensils, and straws by 2023. Its impact would require production companies to produce more reusable, recyclable, and compostable plastic alternatives, and its effectiveness will be measured in the decreased amount of plastic in the waste stream. Another issue leading to plastics in the environment is the often misused recycling symbol. These symbols to the right are not actually recycling symbols at all and are found on every single plastic container. What they are actually resin numbers that denote what types of resin and chemical components are used in the plastic, which is seen in the abbreviation below the symbol. As of now, the only commercially viable recycling types are types 1 and 2. That being said, the bill directly addresses this by creating a national standardized labeling system for recyclable products, which will help better educate the consumers which products should be thrown in the recycling bin and which products should be thrown in the waste bin. This will help improve recycling and waste management habits, as well as will be measured in increased recycling rates. Next, we will look at the public health aspect of the bill. The health risks of plastics stem from either the production phase or during its degradation. When plastics are refined, Refinement plants produce hazardous air pollutants and toxic chemicals, which are released into the air and are directly linked to increased cancer and asthma rates in nearby communities. The vast majority of refinement plants are located in predominantly low-income communities of color, such as those in southern Louisiana in the infamously known Cancer Alley. Plastic products are also treated with bisphenol A, otherwise known as BPA, and phthalates to make these products more durable. However, these toxins are known endocrine disruptors, which inhibit or mimic the body's natural hormonal, immunal, or brain systems. They can also impede developmental processes, which is why most BPAs are banned in baby products. BPA and phthalates also leach into the environment and enter the human body through plastic pollutants. The main plastic pollutants are nurdles and microplastics. Nurdles are the raw bead-sized plastic pellets which come right out of the refinery. They pose a direct risk to health to production workers as they are directly exposed to BPA and phthalates in their production. They are also carelessly spilled into the environment during manufacturing and transport and are often confused as food by wildlife. Microplastics occur at the end of the plastic life cycle and are defined as small pieces of fragmented plastic that are less than 5 millimeters wide. Similarly, these are also ingested by wildlife, and this poses a direct risk to humans as these BPA and phthalates are known to bioaccumulate up the food chain. Bioaccumulation is the gradual accumulation of toxins throughout the food chain. As you can see here in this diagram, if the smallest fish species are eating the microplastics or nurdles, they're directly exposing themselves to these endocrine disruptors. As the larger fish species eat these smaller fish species, the toxins carry up with them. Eventually, humans eat some of the largest fish species and are thus directly exposing themselves to the toxins that carry up the food chain and are exposed to these endocrine disruptors. As of now, there is no large-scale viable solution for microplastic removal. That being said, the bill will allocate funds for the microplastic pilot program in order to identify solutions for removal of microplastics as well as detection of microplastics. The bill also proposes a microfiber filtration program in the laundry system. It will mandate that all washing machines be equipped with these microfiber filtration systems. This is because 12% of all microplastics actually come from the laundry system when synthetic fibers break off the clothing. The bill also addresses inequities by ensuring that grants will be distributed to low-income communities for maintenance and installation of these filters. Lastly, we are going to look at the behavioral component of this bill. Historically, the burden of plastic waste has fallen onto the consumer. This bill introduces the idea of extended producer responsibility, otherwise known as EPR, and would result in a dramatic economic shift of plastic waste management from the consumer back onto the producer. This will be done through fines intended to regulate producers into minimizing single-use plastic, as well as designing more reusable, recyclable, and compostable plastic alternatives. EPR responsibilities will be carried out through the product stewardship plan. These plans will require every organization to set goals and stringent targets for recycling, composting, as well as other proper waste management targets. The bill itself sets a minimum benchmark of 80% of all covered products recycled, 90% of all beverage products recycled, as well as 70% of compostable plastic products composted by 2032. Now that we've discussed the plastics problem as a whole and the solutions proposed by the bill, let's look at the original plastic life cycle. As you can see, there's a major emphasis on extraction and refinement, as well as in its waste system, as 91% of all plastic waste ends up in the landfill. Our research has shown that if this bill were to be implemented, it would shift the plastic life cycle to make it become much more cyclical. As you can see here, there's a major emphasis on recycling, as well as composting and reuse options that will help extend the life of plastic itself. Most importantly, there will be a major reduction in the amount of plastic ending up in the landfill and waterways, as well as a major reduction in the extraction and refinement, because there will be a major reduction in the amount of single-use plastic being produced. As we look to the future, in the fall, we will begin researching the implementation of this bill, as well as how this new life cycle can help be a core aspect of shifting the U.S. economy into a more circular economy. Thank you guys for listening, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
I have a question about the health impacts and how this bill specifically addresses those. Like, I bet that extraction will be decreased, but it seems like these factories will still be producing plastic, it's just gonna be not single-use plastic, and maybe there'll be recycling plants, like, do you foresee a shift in the health impacts or a decrease in the health impacts just through those things, or are there other specific ways to go address this?
Yeah, so through those things specifically, the bill mainly addresses single-use plastic production. And so by reducing the amount of single-use plastic, you're directly reducing the amount of fossil fuels necessary that need to be extracted. In doing so, you'll see refinement plants start to close, which will, benefit the communities because these hazardous air pollutants won't be released into the air.
Got it. So it's mostly from the extraction, not from the factories that are like.
Yeah, extraction as well as like in the landfill itself and waste disposal.
Over here. You got it down first.
Yeah, so I have a question about the waste management. So you talked about how like the goal of the bill is to see more plastic recycled or more things that are compostable composted. But right now, a lot of times there's like more things that could be recycled or composted, but aren't, because those systems are run by municipalities and like the government in those local areas hasn't invested in the correct recycling or composting facility. So like, does the bill have any funding for government to scale up their waste management? Because it seems very focused on producers, but producers don't actually control waste management. So if they like get their plastic wrap from consumers and want to recycle it, but like there's no recycling facility, they're still screwed.
Right, so the bill will create this national standardized labeling system, which as well as like creating a national standardized like recycling system. So the hope by doing this is that there won't be as many discrepancies between municipalities and between states themselves. Instead, there will be a standard of what types of resins can be sent into the recycling bin. And in doing so, this will help build up like infrastructure because around the United States, because more recycling plants will have the exact types of plastic they can actually recycle.
Great presentation. This might be an implementation question, but I'm curious as to which agencies will be responsible for educating people about the recycling changes and how they can increase their recycling behaviors. That's something, if it's not managed well, we won't see much behavior change.
Yeah, as of now, there is no agency that's doing that. So that will be in our research in the fall.
We'll take one more if there's a question.
For your presentation, Max. I have a question about the extended producer responsibility thing. So I like the idea that there be regulation to actions that have plastic. Does the Act do anything about increasing the abundance of alternative options to plastic? So obviously these companies are going to see them in options. Will that be more available?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's a lot of like these ideas of plastic alternatives like bioplastics and stuff like that. As of now, they're kind of a false promise to an extent, and none are widely available on a large scale solution or to be scaled up. So the idea of introducing this extended producer responsibility will be to incentivize these corporations to invest more money into research and development of various plastic products that are compostable, better recyclable, and can break down easier in the landfill.
Thank you very much.